At the end of the day, if there was only one thing that I could power in a grid down scenario, team, when the power goes out, what are your solutions? What is your particular way forward with how you want to carry on life, whether we're talking about for 24, 48 hours, whether we're talking about for a week, or for something that is longer or more enduring than that. I want to kind of talk a little bit about grid down power, as well as present two solutions or two pieces of a solution, or pieces for potential two solutions for problems or to fix things or whatever. And I want to give you some thoughts about what I have that I may do with these two Golden Mate batteries. We're going to talk about them, as well as some of the challenges that exist in making off-grid power happen. Okay, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts and your comments down below about what you think I should do with these two batteries. I'm going to give you some running estimates of what I should do and how long they should last. But I'm no genius, and some of you guys are out there are a lot smarter than I am. So I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts and your comments down below. So these two Golden Mate batteries are 200 amp hour batteries. Sometimes it can be frustrating for me when I look at batteries and see how they're labeled to figure out how long a particular battery is going to be able to last, and that's only part of the equation, knowing how many amp hours, because you need to know what kind of inverter that you need, what size of an inverter, how many kilowatts or watts or whatever of an inverter that you need. And so there are some other controllers and things that you need to get set up. If you set up a solar system of any size, definitely leave some knowledge down below, right, as far as what people can expect, some lessons learned, and some things that we can all put in our kit bag so that we can master our craft and develop our tactical virtue. In general, however, comma pause for dramatic effect, a 200 amp hour battery is going to last 200 hours if you have something that's pulling 1 amp, right? That's in general. It's not perfect science, right? But so there's a lot of things that I can do with these two batteries. My first and initial thought was, I have one thought when it comes to grid down power, right? I have a backup generator for the house, which is fine for non-contested environments, right? When a storm comes through and it knocks out the power, I can turn everything in my house back on, and I can run and live a normal life even in the middle of winter with my generator. If it was a contested environment, I probably wouldn't want to run my generator, right? Because it breaks noise discipline, right? They're loud. And I'm going to break light discipline if I carry on life as normal. So when I think about this, you think about what could potential raiders or looters look for. One, it's going to be a place that has power, because if they have power, that means they probably have food. How do I know if they have power? I'm going to know that they have power by seeing all of the white lights, just like you see some lights reflecting off of the map of my area of interest here, right? If I see light, I know that there's stuff there that I want. And in the middle of the darkness, that could be your only piece of intelligence or information that there's something out there that somebody wants. So, to be honest with you, I don't care about lights. If things went bad or whatever, I don't really care about all the gizmos and electronics, right? Don't care about those. I really ultimately don't care about heating and air. I live in a fairly temperate environment where I'm at. It gets a little cold. You can't see it on the camera, but I can see my breath coming out here in the CP. It's a little chilly. But I got a wood burning stove, we got blankets, and I have propane heaters, if I needed something. So I have a lot of ways to heat my house. I don't have an electric stove. I do have a propane stove with a fairly large tank, so I'm good on heating. I don't need or cooking. I don't need a microwave, which has a huge draw of electricity. I don't really care about washing and drying machines. Again, these things eat up a lot of electricity. And you can always hand wash things as needed. It's not a big deal, right? We used to. There was a time, ladies and gentlemen, before the disposable diaper, right? And now, if you ask somebody to use a cloth diaper, they're going to look at you like you're a freaking madman. It's too crazy or icky or whatever. But we can do our own laundry, and we have worked on some different recipes for our own laundry soap, so we're okay there. Do I care about food preservation? Extremely long term, the answer to that question is no. I don't need a refrigerator. That's a nice thing to have, but if you look in your refrigerator, there's probably more leftover and junk and extremely short usage stuff. So in a long-term survival, right, doomsday scenario, those things really don't matter. A freezer is a really nice thing to have, but there are other ways to preserve meat, and I'm not an expert in them. I make mistakes, but you get out, you practice, and you do what you can. And there's other ways to develop cold storage, right? To build a root cellar, which is on my short list of things to do here at the Stoker House. So, what do I really want power for? At the end of the day, if there was only one thing that I could power in a grid down scenario, there's really only one thing that even it isn't a requirement to have power for me in my situation, but it's water. Right? I have a well here at the house, and ensuring that well pump has power is my top concern and my top priority. So I got to do a little bit more math with my pump, and I'm 90% sure it's a 120 volt pump, so I should be good with one battery and a standard inverter and a couple other hooyahs here. But one of these batteries is going to more than run my well house, right? More is going to do way more than what I need for that, which is a good thing. I could, with a small solar panel, I could go weeks off of this battery if I had no cloud coverage at all. Like, it's going to work just fine. And I want to tell you why that's my number one concern is because water is life. And as you look around at your preps and how you are preparing for natural disasters or man-made disasters, however long they may last, the things that most people look at are bullets and beans, right? Do I have enough ammunition to locate, close with, and destroy the enemy, or to repel enemy's assault by fire maneuver? And do I have enough food to outlast everybody else? Everything else, it's like we don't think about, we don't talk about, and there's a lot of logistics and sustainment things in there that we should be concerned about. But water is certainly a top priority, especially when you consider pound for pound how much water that you need to sustain life, to cook, to clean, for hygiene, and to live a life that, quite frankly, doesn't suck. Way more than food. So if you had a rack full of food, but you have 2 gallons of water, you're probably wrong, right? You got 2 things of disposable plastic bottled water, you're probably wrong. And I would challenge and encourage you to get your water right now before you need it then. And so that is one of the things that I'm going to do with one of these batteries. It's going to be a huge impact, I think, for us here at the old homestead. For the other battery, what I have in mind, and it's a little bit of an overkill for this, but my running estimate right now is to set up a repeater somewhere up in this area, right? And with one set here, and we're probably going to set one up somewhere over here, we can reach our entire area of interest. Everybody in my community will be able to have radio communications at the house and on the move, right? So setting up the infrastructure that's needed for a radio network. And one of the key things, I've already done a ton of research here. I know how far our frequencies can travel. We have a lot of micro terrain and a lot of vegetation. And I know that with a handheld radio, walkie-talkie, right, I'm going to get at most 4 miles with a good antenna through the vegetation, right, on the low ground to low ground, through the vegetation of the micro terrain, about 4.5 miles. With a 50-watt mobile radio and good antenna, I can extend that out to about 10 miles, which is certainly well short of what all of these manufacturers are going to tell you that they can do. However, that's quite a ways when you think about it. Now, once I raise up an antenna or a repeater to higher elevation, one that has legitimate line of sight throughout the area, I'm going to be able to expand that to 30 miles. And I won't have to use 50 watts to do it. So again, we're going to try out a 5-watt repeater. And if that works, then we'll set up our other repeater and we'll make sure that everything's good to go and that everybody has comms in their house. Oh my God, you got comms in your house. Contested environment, blah, blah. Well, our first priority, to be quite honest with you, is not as much concern about a state actor, but about those looters and raiders. Or just about the ordinary, somebody's having a hard time, somebody fell down and injured and broke their leg, their hip. They got their snow covered and they can't get out, nobody can get to them, and they need some freaking help. Well, if the cell phone network goes down for whatever reason, which, by the way, sucks here, right? I have absolutely no cell service here at the house. How are you going to reach out to people? And again, the time to test these things is now before you need them then. By the time that then happens, whatever that triggering event is, again, it could be something as simple as that snowstorm that comes in, that once in a decade, that once in a lifetime snowstorm. It comes in and it knocks everything out. How are you going to be able to communicate? And if you're locked in a house and you have no power, that cell phone's not going to do you any good. So you need some way to be able to communicate. Are you going to say, oh, your radio's not going to do you any good? Well, the same with cell phones. There are ways to power with a very low requirement a radio at the house. And if you don't have something like one of these, you could always go out and get a larger battery bank like one of these guys. And this dude's going to power a radio for a stinking hot minute, as well as charge your freaking cell phone. So you do you. But you can get smaller ones as well, right? That will give you a couple charges. And radios don't use a ton of power anyways. If you left on a Baofeng, for example, oh my God, he said Baofeng. Oh, he said Baofeng. Hashtag China. That thing's going to run 24 hours on the single battery. So if you had a couple batteries that you made sure that were charged, you're going to be good to go, right? And if you are running a larger base station at the house and you have a larger power supply that's needed for that, then you may need something like this or a larger solution, maybe that's tied in to the rest of your power infrastructure to be able to keep comms up. But if you can't talk, you can't fight. But fighting isn't talking, right? It's a golden rule right there. If you can't talk, you can't fight. But fighting isn't talking, and talking isn't fighting, right? Hopefully you pick up what I'm putting down. So that's what I'm looking at for these two things. I could, if I had more batteries, I would probably want 8 to 10 to be able to give me, say 4 days with solid cloud cover. I could tie in something a little bit different into my distribution box and be able to take other things other than just well water off the grid if I wanted to, or to supplement what we have. Hot water would be nice, right? That'd be super nice. Hot water heaters use a lot of food. And again, I could just set it up to pull I could probably do it with these two, but I would need more solar panels than I want for a faster charge. But I could do my refrigerator, and hot water heater, and I could probably run for a day without sun. But that's just not quite enough. I don't want one day. I want 4 or 5 days without sun, right? Think middle of winter. There's clouds overhead, day in and day out, and your solar panels are not receiving the things that it needs to charge your batteries. So before you invest in all kinds of, I want to go off grid, consider not only your power consumption, which is easy enough for you to calculate how many kilowatt hours that you're going through, and that's going to give you a decent idea. And you look at your amp draws of all your equipment, especially your big ones, right? And your big ones are going to be anything that produces heat, right? So your dryer, your hot water heater, your microwave, your coffee pot, your refrigerator, your freezer. Freezers and refrigerators don't use as much power as they used to. They've gotten a lot more efficient. But these are your big draws, right? In your heating and air conditioning system, right? So these are your big draws on your system. And then consider how many days that you want to go without sun. And then start doing some math and start doing piecing some things together. And a lot of folks, I was talking to my father-in-law, he's like, "Oh, Bill, I think I can get this done for, $1,500, $2,000. And I was like, "No, man, you're not going to be able to do that." These batteries alone are not inexpensive. They are expensive piece. And for a single item is probably the most expensive piece in your setup or in your system, right? And then you need a plethora of other items in the system. And you need to consider how big of a solar panel setup that you need in order to charge, and how fast you want them to charge your batteries. And depending on your draw, and to consider your discharge rate on your batteries and everything else, right? So there's a lot to go in there. But this is what I'm considering. If you have better ideas, if you have ideas that I can tweak my ideas with, again, man, I'm looking forward to hearing those thoughts and those comments down below. Team, there's a lot to off-grid power, and I hope some of this sparked something in you to think about, like all of this white light that we've become accustomed to. When the power goes out and everything is dark, it is easy to pick up light. So get your light discipline down as well. Think about how you're going to deal without light. Riggs hears something over there. I don't know what that is. He's just laying down on the floor. He's such a good pup. Think about the things that you really want to have power for. Again, team, I would tell you that at the end of the day, if you had no power, it is not the end of the freaking world. Especially if you're talking months and years on end. Not that I can imagine a scenario where that would probably happen for those years on end. At least nothing that is probable, right? Almost all things are possible, but not everything is probable. All of the things that you have to get through to get to that kind of a point have to line up perfectly. They have to line up perfectly, right? And that's a lot of what ifs and a lot of then whats. But if we had no power, it's not the end of the world. We literally have lived without power for like 99.9% of humanity's existence, right? If we lost power, it's going to be okay. The thing that you have to do with where you are at in your location is understand the risks of not having power and implement controls to mitigate those risks. Some of those decisions may be hard. Like you may say, I may have to move because I live in the land of 3 socks. And I'm not prepared to go and actually survive in a land where I'm required to wear 3 socks. And this applies to dudes and dudes only, right? 3 socks. 1 on each foot and 1 in the middle. If you've ever been to a place that required a sock in the nether regions, leave a comment down below. Team, I appreciate you guys, and I look forward to hearing and talking story with you down in the comments below. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked. Team, if you want to master your craft and develop your tactical virtue, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on future content. Consider becoming a channel member. It's going to give you exclusive access to content not available to anybody else. I appreciate you guys. Until then, you stay out there, you keep grinding, and you stay stoked.